Just to continue on the discussion of exports, several of you have raised the fact that there are multiple applications pending right now. There's 12 that are with FTA, countries with FTA agreements, 3 that are not. The suggestion has been, and not necessarily with this panel, but out in the public discussion, that somehow or other, if all these applications were to be approved, all of a sudden we wouldn't have access to the natural gas in the volumes and the quantities that we would hope for this manufacturing renaissance. I think it was you, Mr. Eisenberg, that noted some of the difficulties. I noted in my opening comments that we're talking about billions of dollars to build out the infrastructure. If we're talking, I was over in Japan a couple weeks ago. They're looking at our prices with somewhat envy, but when they account for the transportation costs, the liquefaction facilities, at the end of the day, there's not that much difference between what they're currently paying and what they might pay if they were able to take benefit of export from the United States here. If I can ask, and Mr. Liveris, you had mentioned that potentially we could see half of our natural gas being exported if, in fact, these applications were to be approved. The question is, do any of you believe that we will be in a situation where we will see a dozen export applications approved in this near term? And I throw it out to any of you. Given the cost, given the need to build the long-term contracts with other nations, and the financing. Mr. Liveris?
I would actually firstly agree with my good friend Jack, seeing we're friends. The conversation about adding jobs is what we should be having, 2 million plus 5 million, not 2 million or 5 million. I think this conversation is seen before. None of us get the gas price right. 5 years ago, we had it wrong. We were building import terminals. 5 years from now, what's it going to be? And how many terminals should the public interest demand? What is the public interest here is to get volatility and instability out of an energy price. We care about agriculture in this country. We care about defense. We should care about energy. This opportunity to get it right by doing both in the public interest means we should take a crawl, walk, run approach to how many terminals we approve and how many of these occur over time. As I said in my testimony, we're in the 5th year of our 100-year advantage. You can't move factories overnight, to state the obvious. Why put at risk the 5 million jobs, that the $96 billion of investment that are on the books today, over 60 companies? Why put that at risk by doing either or? Why transfer the risk? So be cautious. Do what the public interest demands in the DOE application process. I agree, financing will be difficult. I agree, prices will be volatile. But why take the risk and let the speculators set the gas price like they did 10 years ago? And we all remember the Enrons and what the efficient market did for us 10 years ago. It was hardly efficient, okay? It was very inefficient.
And I am not, we can talk about whether or not the public interest determination allows for the specific criteria that we need to look to. I think that that's going to be important, part of it. I have suggested, too, that we need to be very thorough in the review. You don't just willy-nilly grant application. These all need to be recognized for each application and what they might provide.
I've got a few questions. I'd like to start with Mr. Liveris, if I could. In your testimony, you suggest that increased exports are likely to bring about upward price pressure on natural gas. But it appears to me that you may not have taken into account the impact that Mr. Gerard referred to a few minutes ago, the impact that would result from increased demand resulting in higher prices, resulting in increased production activity, and likely in more production of natural gas, perhaps enough to keep the price of gas even or close to even. Is that a correct characterization that Mr. Gerard made, that we need to take that into account?
So I made several points. Firstly, the world market for gas does not exist. It's a world oil price. The world oil price is currently $117 Brent. It's got nothing to do with the cost of oil production. It's got nothing to do with actually the affordability of oil around the world. It's got everything to do with speculation and geopolitics. Before you index the domestic gas price to the world oil price domestically, and this upswell that Mr. Gerard refers to, which is why you want to export in the first place, I said we are for exports. But we should be very careful that we don't do what is called Dutch disease. Economic theory brings back the highest price back to your domestic sector with unintended consequences. Be careful of unintended consequences. Have the production, have the exploration. Gas prices should rise from where they are today. They're locking in wells because the gas price is too low. We fully expect domestic gas prices to rise. That's not even a question.
You're okay with that in the sense that you know some of that's going to happen.
There should be a return for everyone here, a return for the people who've taken the risk, a return for society. Let's use some of this bounty and transition to a low-carbon economy, as Senator Franken talked about. We are for an all-of-the-above energy strategy. Let's use natural gas as a transition for our economy first. Let's let that upswell occur so there's a reasonable return for everyone, and there's American manufacturing jobs and the American consumer. That's a thoughtful approach to how many of these applications to approve.